The stalemate between the president's son and Republicans in Congress over how he will testify before the Oversight Committee won't be resolved anytime soon. Hunter Biden's legal team is digging in on its requirement for any hearing to be public. Republicans maintain they want a closed-door hearing first. Over the past few months, a planned plea deal fell apart. And then the investigator in charge of Hunter's case was elevated to special counsel, who last week added on several new felony charges. Joining us now is counsel to Hunter Biden. Attorney Abbe Lowell joins us. Thank you for coming on the show.
Good morning.
I just want to ask, first of all, about sort of the nuts and bolts of these new charges. Obviously, criminal tax cases are pretty rare. The average American has as good a chance of winning the lottery as being criminally prosecuted for tax fraud. Having said that, did Hunter Biden file a false return, and did he evade taxes?
Okay, so to start with your premise about being struck by lightning, I think you want to focus on the most important thing that happened last week. And this is what happened last week. In June, just 5 months ago, U.S. Attorney David Weiss thought, after a 5-year painstaking investigation, that this was the right result. A 1.5-page, 2-count misdemeanor charge for Hunter's filing his tax returns late. Just 5 months later, without there being any new evidence after a 5-year investigation, this is what he did. A 56-page, 9-count indictment. Question that you and others need to ask, and ask him and anybody else who criticizes Hunter, is what happened between this and this? Not a change of the facts, not a change of the law, but the enormous pressure that was put on by Republicans, from former President Trump to the chair people of House committees, to demand that something more be done. That's not the way it's supposed to work, but that's the way it's worked so far.
Abby, good morning. Jonathan Lemire. We'll come back to the criminal case in a moment, but first on the testimony Hunter Biden is going to provide to Congress, to return to that. Hunter has said that he would like to do so in open session so people can hear it. The Republicans at this point have said no to that. If they will not budge, if they will not allow this to be done in open setting, what will you guys then do?
I think that you're ahead of us on this. I think that we have to be figuring out why it is that they don't want Hunter, or any other witness, by the way, when Chairman Comer has said on 2 or 3 occasions that they have enough evidence to start asking questions. And as my letter to him indicated, he said that people, we want to bring them down, we want to hear what they have to say, and they can testify either by way of a deposition or a public hearing. It is their choice. That's what he said. So we want to take him up on his offer. We have offered, and we'll see how that goes, because we will want Hunter to ask, as he has indicated, every pertinent and relevant question. But he should do so in a forum in which the people can hear the tactics of the Republicans and hear his answers and see that they cannot go behind closed doors and do what they've done a dozen times, which is to manipulate the evidence for a false narrative. But you're a little ahead of yourself. I'm here to basically address the issue of what should be paramount, because not many people have to testify in Congress, but a lot of Americans have to file their taxes. And when they're late, or when there's a mistake, or when there's something to be done, what the IRS and the government does is they ask questions, they ask for backup, they bring civil actions. What they don't do is take a 2-count misdemeanor in June and turn it into a 9-count, 56-page indictment in December. And that should be the focus, because it's unprecedented for that to have happened. And given all the issues that the U.S. Attorney's Office knew over 5 years, what had happened with his lateness, why he was, as everybody knows, at the bottom of the barrel of his addiction to crack cocaine, which explains a lot of his misconduct, and also addresses whether he was in what they call a scheme as opposed to just being at the dullest part of addiction. That's what's going on. So let's focus on what might affect Americans. And there are 2 more things to say about that. I was thinking on my way over here today that in the last 5 years, the Republicans in Congress yelled crazy when the Democrats, who were in the majority, sought to go after former President Trump by attacking President Trump's children. And they yelled and screamed about it. And now the hypocrisy is extraordinary that they used the same tactic that they thought was outrageous to go after Hunter Biden, who has never been anything but a private citizen, never served in government, and never was in a family business. That should stop. And as to the mounting charges, people just need to ask the question, what changed between June and December other than Republican political pressure?
Well, your point is well taken, sir. But let me ask you, what have they said to you? What did prosecutors say to you and to your client as to why things changed?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So they said nothing. Indeed, this was a complete surprise to us, notwithstanding we had been in contact with them. Indeed, I think about a week ago, I called the U.S. Attorney's Office for a status check so that I could come in and talk to them if they had any idea that they wanted to bring any additional charges after the gun charges. And at the time of that telephone conversation, they said, no, you already had that meeting. Well, that was based on their investigation years ago. So I said, I want a new meeting. And what they said was, well, we don't know we can do it. I wrote a letter both to David Weiss and copied the Attorney General saying, if there's any new evidence, then we should come in and address it. If there's no new evidence, then how can you justify anything other than what you did in June? And their response was first silence and then the indictment without any communication back to me. You know, again, if I've done this work, I am in the defense bar. That's not the way it works. Prosecutors engage with defense attorneys to discuss the investigation and the possible charges. It's just yet another way that Hunter's been treated differently than others in similar circumstances would be treated.
Abby, it's Jennifer Palmieri. When you say that Hunter's treated differently than others in other circumstances, that is because his last name is Biden? Is that, I mean, this is what we are talking about?
Well, yes and no, Jennifer. Yes and no. I mean, it's because his last name is Biden, but it's not like they're going after, you know, some distant cousin. It's because he is the son of the president who's named Biden. The Republicans and anybody else that's been investigating on the right-wing media, for example, have tried and tried to say that President Biden has done something wrong. They can't find a shred of evidence because he hasn't. And yet they want this to be an issue. And what they've successfully done, because they go out on the airwaves and people don't understand the difference between truth and misinformation, is basically saying, OK, I can't get the president, so I'll besmirch his son in a way to suggest that there's something going on between the two of them. That's why it is because his last name is Biden, because of his proximity to his dad, who has been a supportive father to his son through all the best and worst parts of Hunter's life. And that's what makes this different.
Abby, can you clarify the line of inquiry that Republicans are pursuing here beyond taxes and guns? Are they also looking into Hunter Biden's art sales to a Democratic donor? Is that a line of inquiry they also are pursuing?
Well, what we know is this. After the U.S. Attorney's Office was roundly criticized by folks on the right for making the appropriate resolution in June after a 5-year investigation, they must have made the decision that says, we don't want that aggravation anymore. We don't want to be the brunt of that attack. So we're going to now pile on charge after charge. And what it will do is convince our critics that we're not being weak, we're not falling over, we're going to be tough, and we're going to look into every crevice, notwithstanding that they looked into every crevice for 5 years before they brought the June information. So are they looking at other things? I wouldn't be surprised if they reach back at a time that Hunter was in a stationery store when he was 11 and took a piece of bubble gum and see if they could charge that.
Okay. I get that. At the same time, Hunter has written a book on his struggles with addiction, and he has written a book on laws that he has broken, doing cocaine, whatever. We can make the list. I'm just curious, does your client have any accountability in these charges?
Well, Hunter, like millions and millions of Americans, or those that have been, does he has accountability? He has extraordinary accountability. I mean, first of all, he nearly died. Think about all the book says as to what he was through when he was misbehaving. And he's the first to say, this was me, Hunter Biden, squandering the opportunities I had in life. That's enormous accountability. Are you asking whether he should have accountability for the mistakes he made while he was addicted? Sure, he should. And if the U.S. attorney had followed through and continued on what was supposed to happen in June, there would have been accountability, because Hunter was in court that day to take account, to have accountability and to show remorse and to be responsible for his conduct. It's not on him that anything happened bad after that day. It's on the government prosecutors who, after seeing the criticism and feeling the criticism, they said, whoops, We're going to now renege or try to renege, and we're going to then see if we can show the world that we haven't been easy. By the way, on that, today is December the 11th. Later today, according to the court schedule, on behalf of Mr. Biden, we will be filing motions to dismiss that Delaware charge, those Delaware charges,
Right.
for the variety of reasons I just said.
But did he file a false return? Did he evade
file a
taxes?
when
I'm ending
Mr.
where I
Biden
started.
goes into
it's
court,
a yes or no.
It's not a yes or no, because you want to drill. No, of course it's not. In order to file a false return that's actionable, the following things, depending on the statute, has to occur. It has to be willful. It has to be deliberate. It has to be knowing. It has to be in a year in which there's a tax deficiency. I will point out for now that in California, the serious charges they filed are in 2018. I don't think the government will be able to prove in any way that Hunter owed taxes in that year. So you can't ask a yes or no question on a complex area of law. What you can say is Hunter was late in filing and paying taxes in certain years. That is a given, as are millions and millions of Americans who do the same thing. The difference is millions and millions of Americans who do the same thing are not then confronted with a 56-page, 9-count indictment.
Counsel for Hunter Biden, Abby Lowell, thank you very much for being on the show this morning. We appreciate it. We'll be following this.
You're welcome, and thank you.